We're live.
Thank you.
Okay. Uh, Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of J&J Fireside Chat. I'm Jyoti Rahman. I'm a macroeconomist by profession and work mostly with developing countries on macroeconomic issues, so macro development. And with me, I've got Rubaiyat Sarwar, also named Jyoti. He's a microeconomist and also works in development. So, Rubaiyat, you are in Addis Ababa at the moment.
Yes, I just came last night to Addis Ababa and will be here for just the day and we'll be heading back home in the evening.
Okay, that's a very short trip, and and yet we find time to do a quick fireside chat, right?
That's
So,
what we do.
do you want to tell the viewers very quickly about who what this cat is about, and then we launch straight into
Yeah,
it?
so hello viewers, whoever you're joining from around the world. Welcome to the J&J Fireside. Jyoti Rahman and myself, Rubaiyat Sarwar. Jyoti, we both are economists working around the world to solve the global's development challenges. But the world's development challenges have both macro and micro perspectives. So Jyoti works mostly on the macro issues, on fiscal policies, monetary policies, and so on and so forth, while I work at the grassroots level with enterprises and the households. But both of our works have the common goal to make the world a better place through equitable growth, equity, and inclusive growth. And that's what takes us around the world. And as we travel, we try to discuss about the global issues, about the local issues where we are traveling, and we try to connect the dots between the world. And we try to explain where do we go. In today's episode, basically, we will be talking about connecting Bangladesh to Africa continent and why Bangladesh should be connecting to the African regions. We'll be explaining that, but through the light-hearted chat that Jyoti and I always do.
Yeah,
Jyoti Raman, over to you.
yeah. Thanks, Rubayat. So, before we get into the actual substantive part of the discussion, first we need to think about how not to read Africa, right? I mean, my first interaction, or not interaction, my first exposure is even exposure is the wrong word. Introduction to Africa was when I was a little kid, and it was through books and movies. Except, those books and movies now, in my late 40s, I look back and I can see, there are all these stereotypes, right? Um, there were good fun books and movies about adventures in Africa and treasure hunts and diamond mines and killer gorillas and Tarzan and whatnot. But these are all seen through a very stereotypical lens. Africa is actually a lot more. So, yeah, how not to read Africa? Start with that.
Yeah, I will start with that. I have a presentation for you today. You always present your chart, so today I thought I would be giving you a treat. So
Absolutely.
I have a presentation. I'll go to that. But truly, Africa to us is a stereotype about lions and chimpanzees and gorillas and also deserts and maybe pyramids. But Africa is a continent. So let's get into that. And I will show you my take on Africa. You can see my screen, right?
We can see your screen now. There you go. Yes.
Yep. So this is an iconic image of Roger Miller from 1990. I was just a 10-year-old, and it was the first World Cup that I remember because I remember almost all the names of the footballer from that World Cup. So Roger Miller came and stole the heart, and he was a Cameroonian football player, striker who was 38-year-old, and he came the fag end of the matches, and he scored many goals and took Cameroon to a second round. My first induction, I wouldn't say was through Roger Miller, it was through Tintin, but I would say this is the most iconic image that I remember. about Cameroon and Africa, and it was about a continent that's rising, and we now know how what a brutal force Africa is in world of football. So, as you said, Africa is hugely stereotyped. First of all, it's not a country, and everywhere you will go, you will find these fridge magnets. Africa is not a country. Africa is a big continent. It's very big continent with 54 countries. And the North Africa region is very different from the Southern Africa region. The West is very different from the East Africa region, the Horn of Africa region. They're all amazingly different, and they don't match each other. So I wish I would be able to give you another presentation on whole of Africa. But there was this fantastic satire by late Binavanga by Naina, and I believe you've read it. If not, please do read it. How to Write About Africa. It's an amazing read and an essential read for everyone who's a digger of essays and satires. So he explains how we see Africa through the lens of a pity or through exoticism. There's a white savior syndrome that we have, people from the West coming to save Africa. Do not forget about the great movie about Africa. So where we all see how even a Coke bottle, if you remember, was changing the mosaics in the savannah. So, but the point is, when we talk about Africa, we think about jungles, we think about safaris, but maybe it's in East Africa and Southern Africa, it's in Botswana, it's in Tanzania, it's in Kenya, Namibia to a certain degree. But if you're going to West Africa and you're searching for lions, you'd be scolded and people will be offended. And then also if you go up of the north of Nigeria, suddenly it changes, and the Niger region begins to unfold. It's very Arab. And the vastness of the continent is amazing. It's mind blowing, and I've been exploring it all. And fortunately, I've been to East Africa, Southern Africa, and Western Africa region. I've seen the changes. And what most importantly I've seen is, as I traveled from the Pacific Islands to the coast of Atlantic here in Africa, I saw how we people actually are connected, and I'll show it to you today through the lens of Africa. So Africa is not a single story, and we need to really unlearn Africa. And as you can see, it's a big continent, very colorful continent, 54 countries, 1.58 billion people. Median age is only 19. It's a very young continent. In all the countries, you have a lot of young people, around 3,000 languages, over 3,000 distinct ethnic groups across the continent. So, I love the flags of Africa, of splashes of green, red, yellow, and in the dresses too. I'll show you later. So the fabric of Africa, it will remind you of our own heritage of fine crafts, but in very bold colors. So, like as you can see on the right side of the screen, these are the fabric of the different culture and countries. You have Kente from Ghana, and then you have Adire from Nigeria. You have Markloth from Mali, Kangan Kitenga from East Africa, and the Habesha Kamis from Ethiopia. I've been a digger of these, and I've been collecting a lot of these. And my house actually looks like a little Africa because of all these mementos that I've collected from different African countries. So, talking about food, I'll go to food later, maybe. But
Oh, we will do food
essentially,
later, but I do have
yes,
specific questions to you about the
indeed,
food.
indeed,
But you go
indeed.
on.
Let's
Yes.
let's let's go to that your question. So, but as I was saying, Jyoti Raman, is that Africa is a big continent, it's a colorful continent, and we need to unlearn about our image of Africa.
Absolutely. So tell us about the places. So personally, I have only been exposed to the east and north. So I've gone from
Mm.
Egypt to South Africa and most places in between. Sort of Zimbabwe, Zambia, Rwanda, Ghana. No, sorry, not Ghana. Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, but never to the western side of the continent. But you've been to both sides and north and south. So tell me the
So,
places. Let's start with the places that yes, it's true. Your lounge does look like a an old Africa hand, but yes, tell me
so
about yeah.
I call Nigeria my second home because I don't know how many times I've been to Nigeria in last 16 years, probably 60 times. I don't know,
Oh,
no
right.
less than 60 times. So I've spent collectively more than a year in Nigeria in last 16 years. And I've been to around 18 of the 36 states in Nigeria. So across Nigeria, that's also something that people in Nigeria say you are a local, more local than us, because many of us haven't been to more than 3 to 4 or 5, 6 states where you have been to 18 states. So I've traveled across Nigeria, and then I worked in Somalia. I can talk about Somalia in one single episode, an amazing country. And my experiences in Somalia are truly worth writing sometime, I guess, essay or a book. I've been to Kenya. I worked out from Kenya, Nairobi primarily, but I've traveled to other places in Kenya. And I've worked in Zambia. I've worked in Mozambique. I love Mozambique. I can't wait to go back, but haven't had the chance in last 11 years, I think, to go back to Mozambique. And I've worked in Tanzania, across Tanzania. So these are the countries that I've been to. Unfortunately, Zimbabwe, I failed to get my visa 2 times, and South Africa too rejected my visa. So even though I had callings, I couldn't make it to South Africa and Zimbabwe. I touched down on Egypt, but I haven't been to Egypt yet.
And as a micro professional, I understand that maybe not in this particular trip because it's such a short trip, but in other trips you actually do get to go to the countryside, do get to go and visit the communities and
All
work
the
with
time.
all the time. Yeah, yeah,
All the time. So
yes.
that's basically what I do. So I go right inside the house, talk to the people, and at the end of the trip, I end up learning a few of the words from the languages. So yeah, that's the beauty of the work that we do.
And this is where I envy micro development practitioners because we macro types for at least most of our work tend to be um, to the ministries, Ministry of Finance or the central bank, and that's it. So you go from the airport to a hotel to a government building, back to a hotel, and back to the airport. So you see the country from a we see the country from a very high level. That is, we don't see the country at all. Whereas as a
Yeah,
micro
and I
professional,
get to see the non-touristy side of it, right? So
yes.
I go to people's houses, I go to the shanty slums and whatnot, but also I hear about people's stories of resilience. Just to tell you one simple anecdote, my first mission here in Africa was undertaking a study on the mosquito bed nets in Nigeria. And so I was going from state to state, villages to villages, cities to cities, talking to people in the households. And they have a unique colony called "Face Me, I Face You" type of a house. So all the rooms are facing each other, and then you have a corridor, and that's just about it. A 10 feet by 5 feet room, 50 square feet room where 8 people are residing, more often than not, with a single window, small window, 3 by 3 or something like that. So in Somalia, for instance, we had to travel always with armored vehicles and protection. So that's crazy affair. People, if they see it, like I'm in a car and I have two Pajeros in the front, two Pajeros on the back, with at least 20 militias and guns.
Right.
And, and then let's say if suddenly there is a shepherd or pastoralist traveling with camels or their goat, the cars will stop and the militia will come out with their guns, so, protecting us. And this is amazing stories that I can share maybe in the future.
Well, like we continue to will will hopefully we'll continue to do the show for a while. So there will be definitely sort of chance to get into this in more detail. But in all these countries, yes, I know you started with the or stress the point that Africa is a continent and not a country, and yet surely through your experience and observation, there are things that bind the continent together, common things in
Absolutely,
economic development.
absolutely. So, from food to culture to let's say economics, the whole continent is connected, very, very connected. And let me present to you again then how the countries are presented, and then I will also explain how even Africa is connected to Bangladesh. So, I was talking about food. So let's say the whole country, continent, they love rice. It's a staple, but they do a spicy rice, jollof rice, which is more like our bhuna khichuri. So spicy, tomato based. It's my favorite and my go-to meal. In Nigeria, suya, the grilled squid meat, is something that you can connect to a sheikh kebab in Dhaka, but a bit different, as in the how the skewered is and the spices. I love suya, and I'm salivating already on the talk of this food and the spices. Oh my God! It's spicy. It's a very flavorsome food, and look at this, a palette of food from Africa. You can see the colors, as I said, very vibrant colors, because of the spices that they use. So what you can see here on the center, you have jollof rice, and then you have the tagine from North Africa, injera on the top left. From here, Ethiopia, you have the peri peri chicken, which I believe Nando's has introduced to Bangladesh quite well. Couscous is also well known in Bangladesh, but on the so basically very flavorsome African food, and I always think of creating a African restaurant in Bangladesh if I could. I will,
Well,
as you
let's
asked
just go
me,
back to the food. Let
yeah.
me ask you. I was going to ask you this later, but we may as well ask now. So, in the subcontinent, being a subcontinental student in the West many years back, I remember always arguing with my Indian and Pakistani friends about which biryani is the best. Is it Dhaka or Lahore or Lucknow or Hyderabad, right? And in West Africa they have exactly the same version with their jollof rice. Nigerians
Yep.
and Ghanaians and Senegalese, right? Which one do you like most?
I think I like the Nigerian ones one the
Nigerian
most.
one most.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Just like the way it's presented with this red chili,
okay.
I would devour it.
All right, okay, all right. Do continue. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so as you're saying that from the cities to the rural areas, I travel everywhere. So this is from Addis Ababa. The right photo is from this morning. The leftmost is so this is Ball Road, the new big road that they've constructed during the COVID time. So this is, as you know, the heart of Africa, in the sense that you have most of the African unions and big offices here in Addis. So it's just a big place from that perspective. Talking about, so this is a rural area, a donkey cart, a child riding it. But this is the Lake Hawassa, a beautiful, beautiful lake. in the Somali region. And so this is the traditional way they serve the food, from honey wine to, you see, the raw meat. So when they said we're going to take you to test some raw meat, I was like, how would you eat a raw meat? Is it even possible? I was like, but unbelievable. This is such a delicious meal. Raw meat can be so delicious. I can't believe it. All they do is just put it on this water. It's very soft, very delicate, and they just smear it with a bit of a salt, I think. So they discovered this way of eating meat because during the war, so the soldiers could not uh, find a way to cook, because if they're cooking, the smoke would give them away to their enemies. So they therefore identified this way of eating raw meat. Unbelievably good. Anybody who's coming here has to taste it. So this is yours truly, as you said. This is how I travel. These are the houses. These are the streets, roads that I go to with my hat on. So yeah.
Fantastic. And let me just, here we go. We're back. And so the raw meat, uh, is it chewy or how, like, as in, like, that is the interesting thing, right?
I thought it would be chewy, not at all. And I don't have much teeth. I don't have
Okay.
many teeth left. So, but when I can eat it, I can eat it better than the meat that we cook in Bangladesh.
Okay. Well, okay, that's a big call, right? Um, and the sky in Addis looks very blue. So
It,
this is
it
a
does.
country this is a country that is actually, there's a lot of construction going on, a lot of new manufacturing, or they're trying to expand very fast economically, and yet it seems that, at least so far, the uh, the sky is blue, right? This is not the case in some other places, right? So, for example, in Cairo, I got sick because the air was more polluted than Dhaka, and
Hmm.
uh, and Nairobi is already taking on the parts of Nairobi feels very smoggy. So that's quite incredible that Addis is still relatively pristine. Or
Indeed.
is it really a very good day, or is it your camera
No.
filter?
No, the day was clean, the weather was good, but you do see the reddishness on the sky. But during the daytime, the smog goes and it becomes blue,
Okay.
a bit more bluer than other countries in Africa.
So, Africa and Bangladesh. Why should Bangladesh? Why should we?
Indeed,
Why
let's
should Bangladesh take Africa seriously? How do we rate it? What?
So let me take you to the core part of the presentation. So enough of the culture. So Africa is buzzing with economic activities. The African continental free trade area is getting bigger and bigger, and actually they're also trying to emulate European Union. So now the connectivity is even greater. So Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania, so they all have created a free trade zone. The vehicles are moving from one country to another. People can really travel quickly, fast between the countries, no visas required. So they're focusing on connectivity a lot, and roads are being built to connect the countries. New flights are being launched every other day. So it's a $3.32 trillion economy. Smaller than the ASEAN. Um, uh, Interestingly, none of the economies are even bigger than our country. So that's South Africa, which is one of the most advanced, still is smaller than our economy size. And then we have Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria, Morocco. These are the bigger economies, but it's still you can see that they're still smaller than our country. South Africa is very industrial. It's a financial hub. Egypt, you have been to. It is a strategic gateway to the Middle East and the Mediterranean. Nigeria has massive energy and tech sector. The oil of Nigeria is of pivotal importance to the region and even more and beyond. And Algeria also exports a lot of natural gas and is an energy exporter. Morocco is leading green energy and automotive manufacturing in Africa. So you have generally five regions. So the East Africa region, West Africa region, North Africa, Central Africa, and Southern Africa. Unfortunately, I haven't been to Central Africa, but the challenge with the Central Africa region is that the imperialism, the colonialism, the residual of it still is there, and brutally mined for extractive industries. And because of that, the conflicts for control of the mining industry and so on and so forth is so high, there's never a calm or peace in this region. So even though almost all of our phones are being um, powered by the minerals harvested from Central Africa, they still remain very poor. Growth remains low. East Africa growth is the highest, 5.8%. There is renewable energy expansion, regional integration, like I told you. Ethiopia and Kenya are spearheading the development, but Tanzania, Uganda are not behind. In fact, Uganda is doing very, very good. In West Africa, there was a lot of fiscal crisis, but macroeconomic reforms have started to pay off. I'll be talking to you about it in next few slides. North Africa is tourism based, Morocco and other countries. Growth is around 4.1%, which is modest. Southern Africa, even though South Africa is one of the most advanced economies in the region, but there has been some sluggishness, strong sluggishness, and the growth has been stalled, but it's recovering. But generally, it's
Just
buzzing
let
with,
let me
yeah,
just quickly. So I was listening to it and I was looking at that and I was just thinking about history and sort of and how diverse Africa is. If you just look at those five, so West Africa had been blighted by slavery and slave trade, right? Because it's on the Atlantic coast and all of those countries, Nigeria and Ghana and like Ghana used to be called Gold Coast, right? And so these were the slavery entrepôts, right? So there's the history of or legacy of that affects those countries. Um, Liberia was founded by freed slaves from the U.S. And then you've got Central Africa, which is it's the heart of darkness. It's the as you said, it's the post-colonial imperial conflicts. It's very unfortunate, very sad place. Um, then North Africa is tourism. It's Arab or sort of Arabic Islamic influence. East Africa and South Africa have been relatively peaceful, but it seems that, or we know that East Africa has been doing much better than Southern Africa, right? Which is something quite fascinating because, well, yeah, that like South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, these countries, Mozambique, these countries seem to be, at least as far as economics is concerned, are struggling, whereas Kenya and Uganda and Ethiopia, they seem to have whatever political problems they may have, they seem to be pushing ahead with their sort of economic revival. It's just something interesting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and because of that, actually, if you ask me where Bangladesh should focus right now, if we are to do trade with Africa, so I would focus on East and West Africa. Both have a lot to offer and a lot to take from us.
Okay. Yeah. No, I interrupted you. Continue. So yeah.
Yeah, so economic headwinds in Africa. So, like I said, so this is so the things that we need to look at from Bangladesh perspective is that East Africa, as we were discussing, is a continental growth engine, fastest growing region, and also called the Silicon Savannah. Actually, if you come to Kenya and in Nairobi, the tech scene is so buzzing. You have a Stanford University's seed program and etc. etc. all the tech innovations taking place in agriculture, health are from Kenya and also in West Africa. There's Nigeria is also leading that, but the startup ecosystem is so vibrant it dwarfs our efforts in Bangladesh. And then also there are large scale infrastructure projects like the Lapset corridor I was talking about, and Ethiopia is focusing on industrial parks, and this is where it gets interesting because it's trying to become a manufacturing alternative to Southeast Asia. So we need to think whether we want to also piggyback on that and also invest in East Africa, especially in Ethiopian trade corridors. And then in West Africa, there has been some very big turmoil related to the fiscal policies. Nigeria's naira plummeted, and the economy went into a sink for last couple of years, but suddenly it has started to pay off. And I would request you as a gig on fiscal policies, please to review the Nigeria's policies, because up until last year, even in 2025, it was in a symbolic condition because of how the oil prices and the naira devaluation was handled, and people were really uh, s- um, getting impoverished. But suddenly, I'm hearing that there is a record foreign direct investment, and the 2 years of shock is actually paying off through a V curve. And in Bangladesh, we have been talking about whether we should also take a blow for 1 or 2 years, because if we don't take a blow, maybe we don't correct our economy to come back for a long-term growth curve. So this is something that we really need to review what is happening in Nigeria. And then in Senegal, Mauritania, we have the energy booms, global gas markets, and massive boost to their fiscal accounts is happening. And in North Africa, the strategic bridge is there, is positioning itself as a nearshoring destination for Europe. It's very much connected to Europe. Actually, if you you could go from Morocco to Spain, right, with boat, and also from Algeria to Italy, which is why France, Italy, Spain, they have so much North Africa influence. Zinedine Zidane is from Algeria, as you all know. So, and then stability is also a great factor in North Africa. The economy is stabilizing. You covered it, I guess, in another our previous episode. But as I said, Southern Africa is still is a slow burn, but there is a mining industry going for EV batteries, which is contributing to growth in Zimbabwe and Namibia. So there is a lot that is happening, as I'm saying, um, um, and so I would definitely uh, observe all of these and would love to trade with Africa.
The some of the reform stories are fascinating and obviously hold very important lessons for Bangladesh, right? Um, Kenya and Nigeria both had new presidents coming in 2022, 2023, thereabouts. Both countries had fiscal problems, or both new presidents inherited a lot of fiscal problems, and they both addressed them with a um, so in Nigeria, it was actually the problems were bigger, and therefore they had to address it in a much more sharp shock therapy kind of way, right? Um, in Kenya, problems were looming, and they wanted to head off a crisis, so they again, had detailed fiscal plans. Um, but yes, in both cases, there were a lot of short-term pain, and in Kenya, the short term pains led to a Gen Z uprising exactly around the same time as our own in July 2024. Youth stormed the parliament. In Nigeria, it seems that the pains, as you were saying, were paying off. In fact, I was reading earlier today about energy subsidy reform in Nigeria, which may have very important lessons for us in that, as you know, electricity subsidies or energy subsidies are politically very popular, and removing them is politically very difficult, right?
Indeed.
but those subsidies are probably not the most poor subsidy that you get, because middle class and affluent classes consume energy a lot more. Therefore, if you don't calibrate your subsidies well, what you end up doing is subsidizing consumption of the more affluent part of the society, right? And so, so this is a it costs the government a lot. The opportunity cost of that subsidy is the money you are not being able to give uh, to the poor for malaria beds or whatnot, right? Um, um, so there is, and then you end up doing the malaria beds before the election, as you were saying, right? So yeah, so there is a lot of potential lessons to be learned from those countries. In South Africa, they're doing electricity market reform. Again, lessons that we can think about that may apply to Bangladesh. Power purchasing agreements and capacity charges and wastage and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. So which countries should we focus on in terms of both? So obviously there are reform lessons, but in terms of expanding our trade and investment portfolio.
Indeed. So going back, so I was talking about the economic tailwinds. Here we were. So if you look at, and as I explained, I'm looking at East Africa, West Africa primarily on the left side. So these are the tailwinds that I'll be trying to follow, and that would basically lead me to the point about, let's say, who do we focus? So I would really want to bring to Bangladesh four African leaders right now. And I've listened to one of them personally last year, and I love him. So I really, really, really would want to pursue this with whoever comes to power in Bangladesh next week after our election. So William Ruto, so he's really um, leading the climate diplomacy. Bola Tinubu is the monetary reform spot. And then, sorry, I had actually Cyril. I would have to correct my slide. So Bola Tinubu from Nigeria president is basically reformed about monetary reform, and this is basically William Ruto. Notes. My slides have changed. Let me just quickly. I don't want to.
Sure.
Um, make a big mistake here. So
Okay.
uh yeah, as I said, I love them.
Yes,
So
I was thinking
yeah.
that I have seen Ruto, and that he didn't look like Ruto.
So
Okay.
Cyril Ramaphosa, so he's the diplomacy of the middle. He's really eyeing at Southeast Asia, and he's really working with Southeast Asia, ASEAN, and he would love to hear about Bangladesh. And his ambition is to connect the global south, which is something that both you and I really subscribe to. So Cyril would be a champion for Bangladesh, I would say. He would be our connector to Africa. And Bola Tinubu from Nigeria, as I said, he made some great bold reforms. He was really criticized for last 2 years. People were not really happy, and Nigeria is a very difficult country to rule from that perspective. But he has been governing, and it's now paying off. FDI is at record high. So we need to learn about his monetary reform policies. And then William Ruto from Kenya, he's really leading the climate diplomacy. So we need to talk to him and invite him, because climate diplomacy is also what we need to learn about. And Abiy Ahmed from Ethiopia, where I am now, is a Nobel laureate, and he's basically spearheading the economic reforms that we are observing here in Ethiopia and in the region. So these four leaders, I would definitely want to bring to Bangladesh. So, what binds us to African economies? So, as I said, there's a post colonial solidarity both of us were ruled by the British, and they were European ruler. There's a global South empathy, as I've been talking about. Wherever in Africa I go, and I when I say that from our company, we are trying to lead the global South to South cooperation, and we want to be the connector of the global South. They really take pride that a global South company is working across the global South. So they really take pride on that. And then the UN peacekeeping missions in Africa, we have been doing that. We are called the Blue Helmets. So that also connects us. They know about us. And agricultural DNA, there's lots of land, and contract farming is something that we can definitely expand here. And Pran has already started contract farming in some of the countries in East Africa. So there's a lot that could be done here. We can bring our farmers, actually. Nobody talks about it. We talk about export of Bangladeshi labor. We never really talked about export of Bangladeshi farmers in the African continent, and that can really be something that we that can give us growth in our manpower export. Now,
I should just quickly note two things here. First, pay our respect to the Blue Helmets. I have seen them every time I have flown through Nairobi. I have seen a contingent either arriving or leaving, um, and sort of they do immensely important work in keeping peace in the continent, and it's also difficult work. It is often to keep the pace, they have to be battle ready and actually, sort of engage in firefights. So I want to acknowledge our Blue Helmets, Bangladesh Defense Forces, and other security personnel who serve with the UN in the continent. And as for the agricultural DNA, our mutual friend Wasim Alim of Chaldal talk a lot about this. So I just wanted to give him a big shout out. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
indeed, my brother, my late brother, was a Blue Helmet here too. So he has been in Congo, Sudan. So, and even last year, we saw a devastating attack on Bangladeshi troops where 7 soldiers were killed. So, indeed, a deep respect to our Blue Helmets. Why should Bangladesh trade with African economies? There is raw materials. Bangladesh's R&D sector needs cotton. West African countries like Burkina Faso and Mali are becoming primary sources, so that can reduce our dependence on India or Central Asia for cotton. There is a new markets for made in Bangladesh. So Africa is
Again,
having.
let me just again, sort of interrupt and stress that point. Roughly speaking, about a fifth of our import from India is cotton. Roughly.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
the exact number could be like 21.2 or 17 point, 18.9 or whatever. Roughly a fifth. It varies year to year,
Indeed.
and
So
that is a key. Our RMG sector is it's dependent on that, and because of the political tensions between the two countries, and we don't want to get into politics in this show, but those issues are there, and indeed at the moment, sort of we cannot really disconnect trade from politics anywhere in the world, given the tariffs and other geoeconomic issues. So, in that respect, or against that background, for Bangladesh, countries like Burkina Faso or Mali are potential avenues for diversification that is mutually beneficial for both those countries, which are probably poorer than us and therefore would welcome trade opportunities with a fellow developing country, and at the same time would be reducing our dependence from a geopolitical perspective, right?
indeed.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then we have potential new markets for pharmaceutical products, low-cost electronics, and plastic goods. I've been talking to our ambassador in here in Addis Ababa. But he's also very interested on promoting pharmaceuticals, but he's not getting good response from our companies. So actually, the interest is deep here, but we are not getting good connections. So that's something that we need to really look into. And then contract farming, as I said, Bangladesh is already leasing land in countries like Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Uganda to grow rice and other crops. So that can continue, and we should be thinking of exporting our farmers to Africa. So, as I said,
So
which country
explain
should
to
be?
me a little bit more about the contract farming idea. So Africa is a population surplus continent, right? So they are the only continent where fertility is still fairly high. It's definitely higher than the reduced replacement level. So, but what is the story that the Africans are leaving the farm for the cities, and therefore, or that Bangladeshis are more efficient farmers, or the land to labor to land ratio is low, and therefore even though they have high population there's still more room. um,
So they have vast land, right? And
right.
and it requires a heavy load of farmers. It's not industrial farming here previously, but what happens is that the difference between commercial farming here and Bangladesh is that you will have vast amount of land where they're growing cocoa, they're growing coffee. These plantation areas are extremely large, and the land area is extremely vast, and people are dispersed. So, and they don't own all of these lands, and it's a pastoralist system in most of the places. So, the farming activities are either fragmented or pastoralist and not commercial. And then those who are educated, they leave for the cities and eventually out of their country. So, the farming labor is not as trained as ours.
Okay. And so just pushing that a bit more. So we envisage, or the idea is that with the contract farms is that farmers should come and is this basically recreating the old indentured labor system, because that did not, I mean, like, that ends up usually creating conflict with the indigenous people and so on, right?
So this
How do
is
we
not
guard
going
against
to be,
those?
this is not in indigenous areas. These are basically strategic engagements between the countries where they're creating corridors, like the land is there, it's not being harvested. Like in Bangladesh, you are doing three crops now in most land, right? So here you're trying to expand the production. So
Right.
you're not encroaching on the indigenous communities' land and so on and so forth. Indeed, that is a big point. Just to give you a very small anecdote, the Maasai, for example, they feel like all the world's cattle is is basically bestowed for them. They are the ruler for all the world's cattle. So even if the cattle is in Bangladesh, the Maasai people's belief is that it's theirs. So actually, the Maasai had a huge tension because they will go to an area and then declare that the cattle is theirs. So I just gave that example because indeed there will be a tension if we are not doing it strategically. But this what we are talking about here is a partnership between the countries where lands are barren and those could be brought under commercial cultivation.
Right. And there will be pathway for, I mean, like, there will be the whole strategic cooperation would be structured in a way that the contract farmers would come in, stay there for stipulated time, and they would leave. They would not, like, sort of. So the idea here is that we're not recreating Western imperialism or colonialism
Not at all.
in a
It's
new
a
way,
lease.
right? This is basically a South-South cooperation. Bangladesh
Absolutely.
government working with Zambia government or Uganda government, right? Uganda obviously had subcontinental a history of South Asians that did not end very well because it was done under a colonialistic system, right? So we
Mm.
don't want to recreate that.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Go on.
So
Yeah.
moving on. Sorry,
No. Okay.
you can see me, right?
I can
There
see
was
you, and the world saw your our WhatsApp threads now. So
So, anyways, so which countries should be prioritized? We're talking about South Africa could be for RMG coal and fruits, Nigeria for ICT, pharmaceuticals and energy, and Ethiopia textiles, leather and logistics, and Kenya for digital trade, banking and tea. But bear in mind that they are already in active trade with ASEAN and India. And India has a very strong history with Africa. So if you go to Kenya, you will see a lot of Indians in Tanzania too, in Zanzibar. So a lot of these places in Uganda. So in Nigeria, they have in Nigeria they did not naturalize, but in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, they have naturalized. They don't call themselves Indians anymore. It's the fourth generation Indians, but they're deeply connected to their root in India, and uh, India is benefiting from trade with all of them. So it's a heavy competition for resources, and it's not going to be a piece of cake for us to just walk in and do trade. But what I'm trying to uh, send a message here is that we desperately need to act and act immediately to start building these relationships because for last 2 years actually since not 2 years, it's been a year since Trump took his position, and you have been seeing a huge paradigm shift in global trade relationships, and every country, every economy are shaking hands trying to forge new deals, and if Bangladesh is not doing it immediately, we will be losing in a big way. So I'm trying to send that message across. So please do not waste this chance. This is the time, and the window is shutting down very fast. And so finally, I would say there is a big deal that could be made with soft diplomacy, South to South knowledge transfer. We are known for our microfinance. We are known for our expertise in disaster management. Like say, I said, William is championing climate. He would really love to work with Bangladesh on climate. And Nigeria, they have such a strong, I would say, I mean, they love Bangladesh somehow. So, and the educational exchange from Nigeria is already happening. Somalia sends a lot of students to Bangladesh. So, educational exchange can also open up a window for the soft diplomacy because a lot of these youth would soon become the professionals in these countries, and they would actually lead these relationships. And music in Africa is a passion and it connects. I would really want to have a cultural exchange, musical exchange, a dance exchange, and whatnot. But that needs to happen fast. Let's start with soft diplomacy. So, what do I love about African countries? The unapologetic energy. It's the hustle that you feel as soon as you enter Lagos or Nairobi. I don't feel like I have stepped out of Dhaka. I really feel like I'm home, and that's why I call Africa, the continent, my second home. Thank you.
Those four countries, Nigeria, sorry, where are we? Here we go. Yeah, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. Okay, so we got our priorities. We're looking at time. We are at 53 minutes, very quickly. Um, and this is difficult, I know, but your favorite music, food, and place, sort of a single individual spot.
Wow.
Very difficult.
Okay, yeah,
You'll get it.
no, that spot is actually very easy because uh, Mozambique, Ely Island,
Okay.
it was kind of Ely Island was kind of I would say an awakening, a new start in my life. So Ela has a special spot in my life. So the three
Great.
days I spent there. So spot is Ela from Mozambique. Food, suya, suya. But I've started to fall in love with injera in Ethiopia
Okay.
now. So okay, no, goes to injera.
Close to Injera.
And
Okay.
music, music. I actually prefer the soulful music of Ethiopia more. It's very
Not
soulful.
Afrobeat of the West.
And I'm not a beat lover. I'm into
Okay.
soul music. I'm into soul
Okay.
music. So it's very soulful. Ethiopian music, you feel like you're on the boat and you're listening to our Bhattiari song. So very connect, very flowy and wavy, and the tones are long and slow and emotional, and very Arab-like as well. So it's very influenced by Arab. Afrobeat is more the West Africa and has been a global export. And actually, all of Hollywood is about. Sorry, not Hollywood. I mean, the
Yeah. No, it's about
Western music is now about Afrobeat. People don't know that this is actually from Nigeria. So
yeah. And Nigeria has a pretty big pop culture industry as well, right?
Fela
Oh,
Kuti, Fela's Shrine is in
yeah.
Lagos. It's a must visit for everyone.
Right. Okay. Well, we try to keep these things. We can talk endlessly for any of these issues, but we are also we try to draw these things to a close around 45 minutes to an hour mark. We're at 55 minutes. Um, um, One last thing that sort of I wanted to stress: we Bangladesh do have a lot of things to share with the continent as well. So, for example, disaster management. So, you talked about climate. Um, so, disaster management, um, things like vaccinations, immunization. Bangladesh has done over decades. Those kind of micro interventions really well, right? Um, Bangladesh had done. Um, Bangladesh can learn, as I said, about on the macro side, that how to deal with tricky energy subsidies or banking problems and so on, the way the Kenyans and the Nigerians have done theirs. So we can learn from them. So there's a lot of peer learning opportunities, but there's also a lot of trade and investment opportunities as well. So we hope that our policymakers are listening and looking forward to continuing the conversation, right? We're now you are going to come back to Dhaka tonight, tomorrow.
So I will reach tomorrow. I
Tomorrow.
will fly straight away in the evening. Yeah.
Okay. Looking forward to the next show. Perhaps we could do something on the election day about economy. How do economies fare post uprising or post revolution? But let's stay in touch. Let's talk offline and say, and dear viewers and listeners who are watching it live and who will be watching it on YouTube and later, appreciate your feedback.
Indeed.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thanks.